My mother's hand flew to her chest in mock sympathy. My father turned away, his shoulders shaking with barely suppressed laughter. But it was my sister Amanda's smile, wide and triumphant under the soft glow of the restaurant's chandeliers, that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't an accident. This was planned. To understand how a celebration dinner could become the moment I finally stopped being my family's doormat, I need to take you back 6 months. Back to when I thought maybe, just maybe, things would be different this time. My name is Rachel, and I'm 28 years old. I teach 2nd grade at Riverside Elementary, which means I make $42,000 a year in a city where rent alone costs me $1,200 a month. I have a 4-year-old daughter named Emma, who has my brown eyes and her father's stubborn chin. Her father, by the way, is now my ex-husband. The divorce was finalized 4 months ago, right around the time Amanda started her countdown to what she called the biggest night of her life. Amanda is my older sister by 4 years. She's a real estate agent, the kind who drives a white BMW and wears designer sunglasses even indoors. She made $180,000 last year. I know this because she told me. Twice. At Thanksgiving and again at Christmas. Both times while I was helping Mom in the kitchen and Amanda was holding court in the living room, entertaining Dad with stories about her latest sale. Growing up, we had different roles. Amanda was the achiever, the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the sweet one, the accommodating one, the one who made everyone comfortable. Mom used to say it with pride, like it was a compliment. Rachel never complains. She just makes do. Making do is what I've been doing for 28 years. The invitation to Amanda's promotion dinner arrived via text. She'd just been offered a junior partnership at Sterling & Associates, one of the most prestigious real estate firms in the city. The dinner was at Monarch, a restaurant where appetizers start at $35 and the wine list requires a sommelier to navigate. Family and close colleagues only, the text read. Black tie optional. Saturday, 7 p.m. Be there or be square. I'd stared at that message for a full minute before the anxiety hit. Saturday meant I'd need childcare. My usual babysitter, Mrs. Chen from downstairs, had her daughter visiting from Seattle that weekend. The backup sitter charged $25 an hour with a 4-hour minimum. That was $100 I didn't have, not with Emma's preschool tuition due the following week. I'd called Mom first. Hi, honey, she'd answered, her voice bright. What's up? Hey, Mom. I was wondering if you and Dad might be able to watch Emma on Saturday night? It's Amanda's dinner, and I really want to be there, but I can't find a sitter and… Oh, sweetie, we can't. We're going early to help Amanda set up. She wants us there by 5 to greet people as they arrive. You know how important this is to her. Something in my chest had tightened. It's important to me too, Mom. She's my sister, and I want to celebrate with her. Could you maybe watch Emma just for a few hours? I could drop her off at 4:30, and… Rachel… Mom's voice had taken on that patient, explaining to a child tone I knew so well. This is Amanda's night. She needs us focused on her. You understand, don't you? You're so good at understanding. I'd understood all right. I understood that when it came to choosing between my needs and Amanda's wants, there was never really a choice at all. In the end, I'd pieced it together. I'd traded shifts with another teacher to cover Friday night so I could afford a few hours with the backup sitter. But when Saturday evening rolled around and the sitter texted to cancel, her own daughter had come down with flu, I'd been left with no options. So I'd arrived at Monarch at 7:45, holding Emma's hand, both of us wearing our best dresses. Hers was from Target, pink with little flowers. Mine was 3 years old, black and simple, something I'd worn to a teacher's retirement party and hoped still looked appropriate. The hostess had given me a tight smile. The Richards party? They started seating at 7. I know. I'm so sorry. Childcare emergency. She'd led us through the restaurant, past tables of well-dressed diners, to a private room in the back. Through the glass doors, I could see Amanda holding court at the head of a long table, her burgundy dress catching the light. My parents sat to her right. To her left was Marcus Webb, her business partner, and the other junior partner appointee. When I'd opened the door, Emma's small hand gripping mine tightly, the conversation had paused. Just for a beat. just long enough for me to feel every eye turn toward us. "Rachel!" Amanda's voice had been just a touch too bright. "You made it. We were starting to think you weren't coming. Sorry. Sitter emergency." I'd kept my voice light as I'd maneuvered toward the two empty seats at the far end of the table. The ones next to the couple I didn't recognize. Far from my family. "Well, you're here now." Mom's smile hadn't quite reached her eyes. "Although, honey, you know this was adults only. I couldn't get a sitter, Mom. You knew that." "Right." She'd exchanged a glance with Dad, who'd taken a sudden interest in his water glass. I'd gotten Emma settled with the crayons and paper I always carried in my bag, ordered her chicken fingers and apple juice, and tried to disappear into the background. That's what I was good at, taking up as little space as possible. For an hour, it had almost worked. Conversation flowed around us. Amanda talked about her sales, about the new office she'd be getting, about the assistant she'd be hiring. Marcus added his own stories, and I'd noticed he was different from Amanda's usual crowd. Quieter, more observant. When Emma had dropped her crayon and it rolled toward his feet, he'd picked it up and handed it back with a warm smile. "What are you drawing?" he'd asked her. "A butterfly," Emma had whispered, suddenly shy. "It's beautiful." "You're very talented." It was such a small moment, but I'd felt tears prick my eyes. Dinner had arrived. Appetizers I couldn't pronounce. Entrees that looked more like art than food. I'd helped Emma cut her chicken while trying to participate in conversations that seemed determined to exclude me. When Dad had mentioned the college fund he and Mom were setting up, Amanda had jumped in with stories about her own student loans. Paid off within 5 years. "Of course, not everyone is as motivated to pay their debts," she'd said, her eyes sliding toward me for just a second. "Some people prefer to just accept their circumstances." I'd felt the heat rise in my face but had said nothing. My own student loans would follow me for another 15 years. Teaching didn't come with Amanda's salary, and unlike her, I'd had Emma to support since I was 24. By 8:30, dessert had been cleared, and Amanda had stood up, champagne glass in hand. The restaurant staff had dimmed the lights, and someone had handed her a microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she'd begun, her voice carrying easily through the room. "This promotion means the world to me, and I couldn't have done it without the support of my family and colleagues." She'd gone on, talking about her journey, her sales records, her dedication. I'd watched Emma draw another butterfly, trying to ignore the way my parents hung on Amanda's every word. Then Amanda's tone had shifted. "You know, success isn't just about talent. It's about drive. It's about refusing to make excuses when things get hard." She'd paused, and I'd felt her gaze land on me. "It's about taking responsibility for your choices instead of blaming others when life doesn't go according to plan." My stomach had dropped. Some people in this room understand that. They know that if you want something, you work for it. You don't just give up when things get difficult. You don't settle for mediocrity because it's easier than pushing yourself. The table had gotten very quiet. I'd kept my eyes on Emma's drawing, watching her little hand move the crayon across the paper. I'm grateful I was raised to value hard work over handouts. To understand that real success comes from within, not from making everyone else responsible for your happiness. Amanda had raised her glass. To those who understand that, and to those who still have time to learn, the table had erupted in polite applause. I'd heard my mother's voice, clear and carrying. "Well, Amanda has always been self-sufficient. She never needed the kind of help some people do." My father had chuckled, actually chuckled, before catching himself and turning it into a cough. Emma had looked up at me, her brown eyes confused. "Mommy, why did Aunt Amanda say that?" "It's okay, baby," I'd whispered, but my hands were shaking. I'd been about to gather our things, to leave as quietly as we'd arrived, when I'd heard the scrape of a chair. Marcus had stood up. The room had frozen. He'd been holding the microphone stand, and when he'd spoken, his voice had been calm but firm. "I'm sorry, but I need to say something." Amanda's smile had faltered. "Marcus, you'll have time for your speech in a minute." "This isn't a speech. This is a clarification." I've been working with Amanda for 2 years. She's talented, driven, and successful. But what I just witnessed wasn't a celebration of success. It was a public humiliation of a family member. The silence had been absolute. I don't know all the details of your family dynamics, Marcus had continued, his eyes on Amanda. But I know what I just heard. And I know that the kind of person who would use their moment of triumph to tear down someone they're supposed to love. That's not someone I want as a business partner. Amanda's face had gone white. Marcus, you're misunderstanding. I don't think I am. He'd set the microphone down gently. I'm going to call the senior partners on Monday and decline the partnership. I can't in good conscience work this closely with someone who treats people this way. He'd walked the length of the table, stopped beside my chair, and looked down at Emma. Your butterfly drawing is still the best thing I've seen all night, he'd said softly. Then to me, you deserve better than this. Both of you do. Can I give you a ride home? I'd felt frozen, unable to process what was happening. My parents had started talking at once, Dad's voice raised, Mom's placating. Amanda had been saying something about jokes and sensitivity, but through it all, Emma had been tugging on my hand. Mommy, I want to go home now. These people are mean. Those words, from my 4-year-old daughter, had broken something open inside me. Or maybe they'd finally put something back together. She was right. These people were mean. And I'd been letting her watch me accept that meanness as if it were normal, as if it were what I deserved. I'd stood up, gathered our things, and followed Marcus out of the restaurant without looking back. The next 3 days had been chaos. My phone had exploded with messages. Amanda demanding I apologize for ruining her night. Mom insisting I owed the family an explanation for making a scene. Dad texting that I was being overly sensitive and needed to learn to take a joke. The messages I didn't get were the ones that mattered. No apology, no acknowledgement, no admission that maybe, just maybe, what had been said had been cruel. On Tuesday morning, I'd been in my classroom setting up for the day when my phone had rung. I hope it's okay that I'm calling, he'd said. Amanda had your number in the company directory. I wanted to check on you and Emma. We're okay, I'd said, surprising myself by meaning it. How are you? Honest answer? Relieved. I've been watching Amanda treat you like that for 2 years. Every family gathering at the office, every holiday party, it was always little comments, small jabs disguised as concern or humor. I kept telling myself it wasn't my place to say anything, but Saturday night, I couldn't stay silent anymore. You really declined the partnership? I did. Sent the email to the senior partners Monday morning. Told them I had concerns about office culture and ethical alignment. Marcus, that's huge. That's your career. My career will survive. But I wouldn't have been able to live with myself if I'd stayed silent. He'd paused. Can I tell you something? I have a younger sister. Growing up, my parents played the same game yours did. She was never good enough, never successful enough. It took her until she was 35 to realize she didn't have to keep showing up to be hurt. I wish someone had stood up for her sooner. I'd started crying then, right there in my empty classroom, surrounded by tiny chairs and alphabet posters. Thank you, I'd managed. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. And Rachel? You don't have to keep doing this either. You don't owe them your presence at events where you're treated as less than. You don't owe them access to Emma. You don't owe them anything. That conversation had changed something fundamental. For the first time in my life, I'd realized that walking away wasn't giving up. It was choosing myself. I'd texted my parents that evening. The message had taken me an hour to write. But when I'd finally sent it, I'd felt lighter than I had in years. Mom and Dad. What happened at Amanda's dinner wasn't a joke. It was cruel. I've spent my entire life trying to earn your approval, trying to be good enough, trying to make myself smaller so Amanda could shine brighter. I'm done. I'm not coming to family events where I'm treated as a punchline. I'm not subjecting Emma to people who think it's funny to humiliate her mother. I love you both, but I love myself and my daughter more. Don't contact me unless you're ready to acknowledge what happened and make real changes. I'd blocked their numbers after sending it. Not forever, maybe, but for now. Amanda had tried a different approach. She'd shown up at my school on Wednesday afternoon, waiting by my car in the parking lot. She'd been crying, her makeup smeared. "Rachel, please. You have to fix this." Marcus went through with it. He declined the partnership, and now the senior partners are asking questions. They want to know why. They're investigating workplace culture, and someone mentioned they'd heard about the dinner. This could ruin me. I'd looked at my sister. Really looked at her. Maybe for the first time. And I'd seen not the golden child, not the successful older sister, but a woman who'd built her entire identity on being better than someone else. Someone who needed to push others down to feel tall. "I'm not going to fix this, Amanda. I didn't break it, but you could tell them it was a misunderstanding. That you weren't offended. That Marcus overreacted. All of that would be a lie." "So what? You're just going to let my career burn because you can't take a joke?" "No. I'm going to let your career face the consequences of your choices. Just like you've been telling me I should do with mine." She'd stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. Maybe I didn't recognize myself either. "You've changed," she'd said finally. "You're being selfish." "No," I'd replied, clicking my car door open. "I'm being self-respecting. There's a difference." The weeks that followed had been hard and healing in equal measure. Emma had stopped asking about Grandma and Grandpa after the first few days. Kids are resilient that way. She'd also started sleeping better. Fewer nightmares, more smiles. It's amazing what children pick up on, what tensions they absorb without us realizing. I joined a support group for adult children of narcissistic parents. That's where I'd learned the term scapegoat, where I'd realized that what I'd experienced wasn't normal family dynamics but a carefully maintained system of hierarchy and control. I'd started therapy too, using the sliding scale clinic near my apartment. $40 a session, money I couldn't really spare, but also couldn't afford not to spend. Marcus had kept in touch. Not romantically, at least not yet, but as a friend. He'd texted me articles about setting boundaries. He'd sent Emma a butterfly identification book. He'd been the kind of steady, kind presence I'd never known I could expect from people. One Saturday afternoon, 6 weeks after the dinner, Emma and I had been at the park when she'd asked the question I'd been dreading. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandpa like us?" I'd sat down on the bench, pulled her onto my lap. "You know how sometimes kids at school aren't kind to other kids?" She'd nodded solemnly. "Sometimes grown-ups do that too. And it's not because there's anything wrong with the person being unkind to. It's because something inside them is hurting, and they don't know how to make it better, so they hurt other people instead." Is Grandpa hurting inside? Maybe. I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not our job to fix him. Our job is to be kind to each other, and to people who are kind to us. Like Mr. Marcus? Yes, baby. Like Mr. Marcus. She'd thought about that for a minute, then looked up at me with those wise brown eyes. "I'm glad we have Mr. Marcus instead." Out of the mouths of babes. The irony was that Amanda's worst fears about her career didn't come true. Not exactly. The senior partners at Sterling and Associates did conduct an investigation into workplace culture, but it was broader than just her. They implemented new training, new policies. Amanda kept her job, though the partnership was offered to someone else. I'd heard through the grapevine that she'd been furious, that she'd blamed me to anyone who would listen. I'd also heard that fewer people were listening these days. Funny how quickly people distance themselves from someone once they see their true colors on display. My parents had reached out once, a month after I'd blocked them. They'd sent a letter to my school, which the office had forwarded to me with a concerned note from the principal. The letter had been 3 pages of typed text, explaining how I'd misunderstood, how Amanda had been under stress, how family should forgive and forget. Nowhere in those 3 pages had been the words, "I'm sorry." I'd written back a single sentence. "I'm open to rebuilding our relationship. When you're ready to acknowledge what happened and take responsibility for the hurt it caused. Until then, I wish you well." I'd meant it too. I didn't hate them. I didn't wish them ill. I just couldn't keep offering myself up to be hurt in the name of family harmony. 3 months after the dinner, Marcus and I had gone for coffee. Just coffee, nothing romantic, though I'd felt the potential humming beneath our conversation. He'd told me about the new position he'd taken at a smaller, boutique real estate firm. Better values, he'd said. More aligned with who he wanted to be. "I've been thinking about that night a lot," he'd admitted. stirring sugar into his espresso, about what gave me the courage to finally speak up. What conclusion did you reach? That I'd been complicit by staying silent. That watching someone be mistreated and doing nothing is its own form of cruelty. That sometimes the right thing to do is the hard thing, the thing that costs you something. It cost you a lot. The partnership. The partnership would have cost me more. It would have cost me my integrity, my ability to look at myself in the mirror. He'd met my eyes. You cost me nothing, Rachel. You gave me something back, the part of myself I'd been compromising. I'd had to look away, blinking hard against tears. Emma drew you another butterfly, I'd said, pulling a folded piece of paper from my purse. She wanted me to give it to you. He'd unfolded it carefully, and I'd watched his face soften. Emma had written thank you across the top in careful preschool letters, each one a different color. Can I keep this? He'd asked, his voice rough. She made it for you. He'd folded it carefully and tucked it into his wallet. That had been 3 months ago. Today, I'm sitting in my classroom during my planning period, watching spring sunshine stream through the windows. Emma's in her afternoon preschool class, probably painting or playing dress-up. Tonight we're going to Marcus's place for dinner. He's cooking, which is something I'm still getting used to, someone wanting to do something nice for me without expecting anything in return. My phone has stayed quiet. No calls from my parents. No texts from Amanda. The silence used to make me sad, but now it feels like peace, like room to breathe, like space for something new to grow. Yesterday, Emma's preschool teacher had pulled me aside at pickup. I wanted to let you know, Emma's been doing really well lately. She seems more confident, more relaxed. Whatever you're doing at home, it's working. I hadn't told her what I'd been doing at home. I'd been choosing us. I'd been showing Emma that love doesn't require you to make yourself small, that kindness matters more than keeping the peace. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your worth. This morning, Emma had asked me to tell her again about the butterfly's life cycle, how it starts as a caterpillar, builds a chrysalis, and emerges transformed. Is that what you did, Mommy? She'd asked. Did you build a chrysalis? Chrysalis, I'd corrected gently. And yes, baby, I think maybe I did. So, you're a butterfly now? I'd knelt down to her level, smoothed her hair back from her face. The story I was told growing up was that family comes first, that blood is thicker than water, that you owe your parents your loyalty regardless of how they treat you. But I'm writing a different story now, one where love is measured by respect, not obligation, where family is defined by behavior, not biology, where a 4-year-old's simple observation "these people are mean" can be the truth that sets you free. I don't know what the ending will be. Maybe my parents will do the work, will recognize what they've done, will show up differently. Maybe Amanda will grow beyond her need to diminish others. Maybe our family can heal. But I also know now that my worth isn't contingent on their recognition, that Emma's well-being matters more than family harmony, that the man who stood up at a dinner party and spoke the truth I'd been too afraid to voice isn't just a business partner who walked away from a promotion. He's someone who saw me when I'd gotten so used to being invisible. The butterfly on my classroom wall, the one Emma drew last week, has pins holding it up. It's not going anywhere. Neither am I. For 28 years, I made myself small. I accommodated. I understood. I made do. I accepted crumbs and called it love. Not anymore. Now I teach second graders that butterflies don't apologize for taking up space when they spread their wings. I teach my daughter that she deserves kindness, full stop, no conditions. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, I'm teaching myself the same lesson. The dinner where my sister called me a failure in front of a room full of people while my parents laughed wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the one where I finally learned that walking away from people who hurt you isn't giving up. It's called choosing yourself. And sometimes, that's the bravest thing you can do.